Part of being involved with an ever-changing enterprise is being willing to be ever-changing yourself. It's something the military pushes us to do from the moment we raise our right hands and join. We're going to need you to change who you are as an individual, to become something more to fit into this dynamic machine. We're going to pay you to learn a skill or trade, and over time become experts in that skill or trade. And along the way, push the boundaries on what you're comfortable with. In a good way, of course. Whether it's additional training, deployments, new mission sets, it doesn't really matter. You're going to step outside your comfort zone at some point during your career. And the goal? To become, well, to simply put it, more. I'm Master Sergeant Andy Sinclair, and this is episode 57 of the MAINEiac radio show. Along the way during your career, you'll meet new people, see new things, and become someone else. And with time, we learn to welcome that change and even anticipate it. But that takes time. But I think the hardest part is that initial step, that leap of faith. As you'll hear in the following interview, a leap of faith is almost always nerve-wracking at first. But just like any deployment, sometimes the hardest part is the journey getting there. And once you're settled and surround yourself with people who have done it before, you hit your groove. And the rest, as they say, is history. Long overdue, but Major Richley, you are and correct me if I'm wrong, you're the LEO for Montenegro?
I'm the Bilateral Affairs Officer.
Okay, all right, that sounds
big word.
That sounds way better than LEO. So I'm glad you corrected me on that. That's amazing. So how long have you been over there?
A year and 2 months now. We came over here the first week of August in 2020.
And I remember, I think if I remember correctly, it was kind of you were going to be there a little bit earlier than that, right? But maybe COVID had a hindrance on that. I can't remember what that whole story was.
There were all sorts of things. Yeah. I mean, trying to move internationally during COVID, I mean, we knew it was going to be a huge headache, but actually I think the craziest thing was the U.S. passport office closed down during COVID. I don't even think they had officially reopened yet in August. And the embassy was telling us we needed our diplomatic passports to travel, but the passport office wasn't creating any. So
yeah,
it was the hugest headache.
Yeah. I kind of, it's probably not even remotely on the same playing field, but when I come into work and I want to just stop and grab an iced coffee, but I can't because COVID has, put restrictions on the local Dunkin' Donuts. But it's amazing though how it's affected everything as small as that all the way up to your case, and it's wild.
Yeah, definitely. Although I do have to say, ice or to-go coffees of any kind is one of the things I miss the most about the United States.
You don't have
first world problems.
Nothing like that over there.
There are no to-go coffees. No.
Why is that? Is it?
It's just a European thing. So cafe culture is a very important part of their culture. So you go to a cafe for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, and that's where you conduct a business. And so there's no need. Why would you eat on the go? Why would you drink a coffee on the go? They just don't understand that concept.
Now I wonder, this is way off topic, but now that we're on it, I wonder if that has something to do with the perception, having been deployed and seeing the perception of how on Americans, that we are go, and that we're always
right
moving to the next thing and not stopping. And what's the phrase? Taking time to smell the roses type of thing.
Yeah. And it's actually, random people will just stop me and talk to me about it, and they'll be asking me questions like, why does America operate like that? We just don't understand. And it's been fun for me because I've had to actually think about it. And, so obviously I still work a ton and we still go at a much higher pace than, our neighbors, but it's nice to kind of appreciate, oh, a little white space in your schedule is a good thing. And I mean, I think COVID kind of taught all of us that, but
Yeah.
seeing a culture emulate it on the day to day has been really eye opening and helps.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially given your situation where you and your family kind of, uprooted everything that you were accustomed to here, to take this awesome opportunity and experience and really expand your
Yeah, like
your career.
professional development.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
word.
yeah,
There
yeah.
we go. That's what I meant. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I was even just talking to General Farnham about this, saying that this is a huge, it's kind of viewed as a broadening assignment, oh, just, stop doing what you normally do, in your AFSC and do
Mhm.
something a little different than what you usually do in the military. But this is just this is like a 180 from what I normally do. So it's been a huge learning curve. But a really fantastic. I think it's kind of helped me see what we as the right, because when you're a soldier or an airman, you're doing what you're told and you see what your small little piece of the pie is, the mission. But
Mhm.
this, I mean, I talk global mission on a regular basis, and it's so you kind of see more of the whole picture. I think it's been fascinating.
Well, okay, so that brings up a good point. So can you talk a little bit about your background? Because I've heard you tell this and I've talked to you about it, but I want everybody to kind of hear who you are, where you're from, and how you kind of started off.
Yeah. So I've always been an engineer. So I have an engineering degree from college, and then from there went right into the Army active duty. The active duty engineer, jumping out of planes, repairing runways, and that was really awesome. But it was also really, really time consuming and exhausting. So we wanted to start a family. So then we moved to Maine. I joined the Army Guard there as an engineer for 2 years, and then switched over to the Air Guard as of 2017. So I've been with the Air Guard as an engineer for almost 5 years now, which has been a really, really awesome opportunity in Bangor at the Air Base. And then got the opportunity, uh, oh gosh, almost 2 years ago to apply and interview for this position that now brought me to live in Montenegro for, when I'm done, it will have been a 3-year tour.
Wow. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but your job now is not in any way, shape, or form engineering, right?
Exactly. Yep, exactly. Although it's been really fun. I obviously I'm still passionate about engineering. So we do have a joint Montenegrin Maine engineer project that will hopefully happen in this upcoming April. So really looking forward to it. The Maine engineers have designed, they've done electrical designs and structural designs and all this. So hoping to actually get it done together. Very excited.
That's pretty cool. What was when you actually got hired and finally made it over there? What was, I mean, again, the only thing I could probably relate it to is when you head overseas and you deploy, like it's that for me personally, like Andy Sinclair, like that is the worst part is actually getting there and traveling. And then maybe like the first week or so, like
Yes.
getting your grounds,
Yes.
realizing there's no to-go coffee, figuring out where you work, figuring out where the chow hall is, that kind of stuff. But I would imagine it's something similar, right?
Yeah, definitely. So the process to get here was, I think, as we already touched on, was super difficult. I'm married. My husband and I have 3 girls. And when we came over here, they were ages 2, 5, and 6. So, right. I mean, and of course, as a mom, half of your concern is how is my 2-year-old going to manage like a 13-hour flight or
Right.
whatever it is?
Yeah.
I've already blocked it out. you know, how can 2-year-olds do anything in public? Never mind an 11-hour flight. But so it's just all those silly little things. So some of our stuff is in storage because they don't ship all of your things. So most of our furniture is still in Maine in storage. Um, and then they ship a lot of our things over, including one of our cars. So here we are
Wow.
driving around our minivan. And honestly, those were our biggest questions too. Like, what does everyday normal family life look like here? And the embassy leases out homes around the whole city. So I'm currently looking out of my window, and I can see the Montenegrin mountains in the background. And I'm looking at an empty lot, and there are sheep actually grazing
Wow.
on the empty lot next to our house. So yeah, I have a ton of neighbors. We all know each other. Most of them don't speak any English, but we have a couple who speak English. We chat, and our kids will play with the other neighborhood kids, and it's yeah, it's a very real, like, in the economy experience. It's super fun.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And I haven't had the opportunity to go over to Montenegro, but my brother has with Com, and the stories that he tells, and just the cultural experiences that he experienced those couple of weeks that he was there. He speaks very highly of it, but that's really neat. That's a cool opportunity. I mean, again though, I mean, just like I said, with actually getting over there, for you and your family to agree to take that leap of faith and
Oh yeah.
jumping outside your comfort zone, which, no pun intended, but you having been in your prior career field, I
Right.
get you're used to it, and especially being active duty, having to maybe PCS every
Yeah.
couple of years, that's probably nothing new
And
for
I
you
think
guys.
that's what helped. Yeah, sorry to cut you off, but
No,
I
no,
think
no.
that's what helped my husband. He was all about it too. I remember they had an info session. It was January 2019. And I was like, man, this Montenegro job sounds so cool, but it's kind of crazy. Moving our kids over, what is the medical situation? And this was pre-COVID, right? You're still thinking about, like, what's the medical, what if
Yeah,
we get sick? Because you have a ton of little kids. That's what you're always thinking about.
yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. And he's like, Carolyn, no, this sounds so cool. Go to the info session. And it was really fun, actually. He helped me study up and research for the interview. Like, he probably did as much interview research
Yeah.
as I did. I mean, he and I would sit there at night scrolling through, articles of Wikipedia and renting books from the library on Montenegro. And there are very few actually written in English.
Oh, wow.
So it was super interesting. So he was all about it. And of course, our girls were small enough that we say, hey, we're moving. They say, okay.
Right.
But they love it. They're actually at an international school
Hmm.
here. So it's really, really interesting for them. Although, again, they're really little, so I don't think they fully appreciate
Right.
what a crazy experience they're having. But yeah, I mean, we're up for an adventure, and this has definitely been one.
That's awesome. And, even though they might be, young enough where they may not appreciate it, as if they were like, in high school or say even college or whatever, but that's to experience that. I know my 4-year-old, he's very artsy and very loves projects and loves to learn, and likes to hear about stories of places that I've been, and as you know, like, as he gets older, like, he starts being more intuitive and inquisitive, I guess, on what,
Yeah.
hey dad, where have you been? Hey, oh, that's cool. Where's Israel? Or hey, where's California? Or wherever you've been. And you said your oldest is 6, right?
Yeah, she just turned 7. So, but yeah, just like as you said. So, I mean, we did a ton of, hey girls, here's America, here's Europe, here's the Balkan region, here's where Montenegro, all, this, right? They're little kids, so
Mm.
that's kind of the level that we prepped them. And you think they get it, but then it was so funny. My daughter was telling me that her friend speaks Italian, and I said, "Oh, that's great. You should
Wow.
ask her where in Italy she lived." And like my daughter, she said, "Wait, what?" And I said, "Well, honey, if she speaks Italian, she's from Italy."
Right.
And I mean, this is my 5-year-old at this point, right? She's in kindergarten. Oh, she's from Italy? She's just so little. It's just one of her friends on the playground, right? She doesn't even care where her friend's from. They just play together and have a good time. And
Hmm.
it's kind of fun. I think it might be one of those things that it kind of clicks for them later in life, maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome though. That's exciting. And now that you guys you're well established there and accustomed to everything, I'm sure that makes it easier, and I'm sure it makes it easier for them and your whole family, really, I'm sure.
Well, definitely. I mean, it was kind of like the U.S., right? I mean, we all had different difficult school situations due to COVID. And it was just hard starting the school year here without the kids without having meeting any of their schoolmates in person. So, and that went on for a couple of months. So that was difficult. But after now they're in person and probably spent about half of the last school year in person as well. So great teachers. Actually, it's kind of like Maine, small class sizes. It's really nice feel.
That's awesome. What are some of the stuff that you're doing? Like, what are your primary responsibilities with your new job?
Yeah. So the part that ties to Maine, well, the whole thing ties together. So my main job is military to military engagements. So anything that the U.S. military does in engagement wise, and I know that's kind of a big term, but any visits, any exercise, training with Montenegrin military all goes through me. So I have one Montenegrin woman who works with me. She's been in our office for about 8 years. So really great continuity. Really helped me put my feet on the ground when I first got here. And but yeah, so it's more than just Maine and the state partnership that we have with Montenegro. So although I would say Maine State Partnership Program, SPP, is what we call it, is probably half the engagements. So that's really awesome that Maine National Guard is able to do that big of a lift. But we interact with U.S. Army Europe, U.S. Air Force Europe, Special Operations Command Europe. So I mean, just all these different big entities over in Europe, just kind of managing all those different pieces. We had the SEAL team here earlier this year. One of the SEAL teams. So yeah, so it's just like a whole wide range, and I'm supposed to be able to talk intelligently and problem solve, and everything from IT and cyber to infantry, urban environment warfare.
Jason.
So
Yeah, that's kind of wild.
yeah, so I think my background kind of helped me with that, although I'm not good at all with IT, even though I'm an engineer. So sorry, but
Right. Well, fake it till you make it, right?
It's been really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been really fun. And I think I've actually gotten to know Maine National Guard as a whole even better because I'm interacting with people from all over the state of Maine and the Maine Guards. It's just been really interesting getting to know even better all of our awesome capabilities in Maine. So.
That's cool. And, being able to network too, I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? Especially now with, like we mentioned before with COVID, like being able to meet with and train with and work with other agencies and other organizations that's gotta be awesome, especially, given your position, the diversity of people that you're meeting. And hopefully you, brought a challenge coin rack with you. I'm sure you're meeting a lot of people and exchanging coins and stuff. That's pretty cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I've had a few experiences with liaison officers. I've had a couple. I think the first one I experienced was in Ethiopia, believe it or not, and it was a major.
Oh yeah,
our Army.
I remember you said you were on that mission. Very cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I asked you earlier if you had an enlisted person that you were working with, because we had in Ethiopia these guys, this Army major and Navy E8.
Oh, really interesting.
They lived in like this big house, and they had like this. And when I say big, it was huge, and it was like it was like they had it all to themselves, and they had, they worked at the embassy right down the road, and it sounds very similar. But then I went to Malawi, and the Army major that was there, he and his family had been there for 2 years, and I don't think he had an enlisted helper, but it seemed, I remember thinking then, and this is before I met you and before I knew that, before you got hired and selected for your awesome position. I remember thinking then, I was like, this is pretty cool. Like the fact, if you're willing to move and expand your professional development and your portfolio, that's quite the opportunity.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, and that's the other cool thing. So outside of the Maine connection, there are four of us total military here, U.S. military in Montenegro, and it's me, and then we have Air Force, National Guard. My boss is Navy, and he's a foreign area officer, so he's gone through couple of years worth of training to specialize in, moving from country to country and working with foreign militaries. And he spent actually at this point the majority of his career working in Europe with foreign navies and militaries. And then another O5, Army O5, who's also a foreign area officer. And then he has one enlisted assistance. So we have a E7 in the Army and the Army O5 Army Colonel work at the embassy, whereas myself and my boss and then two local staff, Montenegrins, work in the Montenegrin Ministry of Defense, which I know for those of you who read Harry Potter, it sounds a little like Harry Potter, so the Ministry of whatever. But that's what they call it. Kind of like the UK system, right? And then, but that's basically their version of the Pentagon. So I work in the Montenegrin Pentagon, which is just a huge honor and responsibility, right? I mean, there are very few foreigners who we allow to work in the Pentagon, even though the Pentagon is basically like a city. But I mean, and think much smaller scale, right? The Montenegrin MOD is very small, but they're a small country. But it's really awesome that we get to be able to work there. I mean, we walk across the hall every day and talk to our J5 or our international cooperation partners within the Montenegrin military. So it's an amazing opportunity.
And I don't know about you, but to me, even just hearing what you're talking about is like spiking my anxiety levels. So I'm sure like you're just the high profile position that it is. And that's gotta be wild, especially the first few months, I would imagine.
It still is, honestly. I mean, so you and I were talking earlier and General Farnham was just here in Montenegro. And then I traveled with him to Croatia, and it was a conference of all the chiefs of defense for all the Balkan militaries, plus all the tags, so adjutant generals, like top ranking military officials for all of their state partners.
Perfect.
And
Sign me up.
I never get FaceTime with the tag normally, I've never talked to the tag before I had this position, the head general in all of Maine.
Right.
No. Yeah. And then there I am writing in the talking points for the chief of defense of the Montenegrin military, writing the talking points for just other leaders and the deputy commander of Europe and what we want him to talk to Montenegro about. And it's just like, wow, this is I'm just a major in the Air Force National Guard. Like what?
Thank God
I don't know if I'm qualified for this.
Thank God for YouTube, or I say YouTube as a metaphor, but being able to look up things and how to do things, and that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Definitely my foreign area officer colonels and commander definitely helped me with some of that. They've had a lot more training in that than I have, so it was a fantastic learning experience. But definitely nerve-wracking. Half of it is just relationships too, right? So, I mean, if you sit there and think about, I represent the United States in military to military activities. I mean, that can only almost just freeze you, right?
Yeah,
Analysis paralysis. But so just owning, right? When you mess it up or you don't know something. I had to do that probably like 3 times a day. I had to present to the Montenegrin Joint Staff our draft plan for fiscal year 23. We're already planning that far out. Yeah, and so you're just going down the list, and I've put hours and hours of work into this with Maine SPP leaders, with leaders in Europe, European Command, and there's obviously always going to be something that you missed, and sorry about that, sir. I'll get back to you, and just being honest, transparent, reasonable, take the time to ask them about their families at the beginning, talk about your favorite part of Montenegro, your latest discovery of something awesome. And I found some of the best interactions are where I asked them, my Montenegrin counterparts, even silly stuff like, where do I get canning? Things to can.
Right.
I know Mainers like canning, and
Yeah.
it turns out Montenegros do just as much. All Montenegrins have their own little garden, or someone in their family has a garden. They spend a significant amount of the fall
That's
canning
awesome.
or making wine and processing all that sort of stuff. And just the asking questions of my Montenegrin counterparts, even outside of the job and the day-to-day work. I get so many good finds, and then we develop relationships, and it's been a really great experience.
Yeah, and making, again, networking and making those friends, and then also
Right.
showing the eagerness to learn and adapt and become better. There's a guy, you mentioned, it's actually kind of interesting. You mentioned earlier the SEAL teams. There's a gentleman named Jocko Willink. I don't know if you've heard of this gentleman before, but
his name rings a bell.
Yeah, so he's a former SEAL. So he's big into like leadership development seminars, and so he and his team, now that he's out, he did 21 years, I think, and so he's out. He's fully retired, and actually, believe it or not, he's from Maine originally.
No way.
He owns a business now, a couple businesses actually. One of them is called Origin, and it actually is out of Farmington.
Wow.
My whole point in bringing this up, I know it's a long-winded story, but he has written a couple books, and one of them is called Extreme Ownership, and it's about exactly what it sounds like. It's about owning everything that you do, whether it's good or bad, especially as a military leader.
Oh yeah,
and how that's important for everybody.
I subscribe to that so strongly. Yeah, and I think it's almost, that's, as I tell all my bosses, I was like, that's my strength and my weakness is my extreme transparency. So like what you see is what you get. And then I'm also not very good at mincing words. And that probably comes from maybe being an engineer.
Right.
I'm way too logical to be very politically spoken but yeah, I think that's the best thing you can do as any leader, but as you said, especially in the military, just own it. I'm doing my 110%, and I'm still going to miss stuff, and that's okay. I can totally own up to that. No problems here. There's no ego. Yep, I missed that. I'll follow up. Don't worry about it. So I think it's working well for me here, because even though sometimes I see my poor counterparts cringe when I walk through the door, like, oh boy, there's more work to be done. And I'll, after we finish like a big engagement, or, as the generals leave or whatever, it's like, hey, guys, I know that was a lot of work. I really appreciate your help. And they're like, Carolyn, it was a lot of work, but we really appreciate it because we know that you're passionate. And I was like, yes.
That's awesome. See, that's a good thing.
A little annoying, but super passionate.
And there's a hidden message here, I think, within, that I just kind of dawned on me, that in this conversation that we're having, the bigger message is obviously like the story and your success and what you're doing over there and your take on it. But I think there's a hidden message there as well, that is stepping outside your comfort zone. So, and that's a hidden message for everybody, not just in the Maine Air Guard, but anybody in general in life, is that you and your family took a leap of faith. You're experiencing this amazing experience in something that you have no background in prior, really, and you're learning as you go. And this is building that portfolio, and as you said, your professional development. And someday, when you come back, or if you wherever you transition to, this is going to be a huge notch on the proverbial belt type of thing, where you can move forward, and you're going to have this, and you're going to always remember it. And I think that there's a hidden message for it. Kind of I guess the best way to put it would be inspiration. Inspiration for junior enlisted, inspiration for junior officers, inspiration for senior officers or senior NCOs. It doesn't matter who you are, that to step outside that comfort zone, and that not to be negative by any means, but Bangor, Maine is not the end all tell all type of thing. And to be able to move forward,
Yeah, that was, you summarized all of that way better than I could. And the only other thing that comes to mind is, I know resilience is kind of a buzzword right now, and I think sometimes in the military you might roll your eyes because we have to sit through, quarterly or monthly talks about resilience. But I really think that is important, and part of that is just not being scared to fail. And again, small fail, right? Sometimes in the military we talk small fail versus big fail. Small fail. Oh no, I let this engagement, slip through my fingers until 2 weeks before. Gosh, I should have started this 4 weeks before instead of 2 weeks before. That's totally my bad. I'm gonna, rush to fix it. But just being ready. I remember one of the things, I almost missed one of my, again, this was 2020, right? So it was all these virtual conferences. And I had seen, something was kind of on some to-do list from the prior person in my position. And I just didn't know what that acronym stood for. I was like, I don't know. And no one's talked to me about this. This shouldn't be very important. And so like 2 days before, I finally asked someone, what is this? And they were, oh, that's a conference. You haven't coordinated for that yet? And you're kind of like, oh. Well, at this point, I've been in the job a month, maybe a month and a half, and you're okay. Yep, I messed that up, but don't worry, I will be at the conference virtually, of course, and I'll take lots of notes, and I'll fix it later. So yeah, actually, it was super funny. It was an Austrian lieutenant colonel was on that, and he was clearly like some special operations mountain warfare guru type. And I was representing the United States at this conference, and they were planning, all these different parts of mountain warfare. And they're saying, well, obviously we'll snowshoe to this position, and I'm like, I'm from Maine. I can talk, winter warfare, no big deal. And I'm like, yeah, snowshoe. I'm with you. And then he's like, but then obviously we'll then switch to skis at this point, and we'll ski in formation, pulling the sleds. And
What?
At that point, it was like, this is so over my head right now. So I'm just scribbling notes like mad, and I'm just smiling and nodding. And he tried asking me a couple of technical questions, and I was just, sir, I am not a mountain warfare specialist. We have a number of them though in Maine, so I'm gonna get back to you.
So yeah, have you ever heard of LVII
at that conference?
Yeah, we've got,
exactly.
Yeah.
Sir, I'll pick you up a nice basket of LVII things afterwards.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was funny.
But that's it's better than what I would do. I'd probably sit there and just nod and just like think to myself, I'm in danger. I'm in trouble. Yeah.
I was totally thinking that the entire time.
Yeah, right. Well, at least you were taking notes. That's a good thing. But yeah. So what are some of the high ticket items, like some of the bigger projects that you've worked on since you've been there, and some of the bigger things that you're proud to have accomplished?
Yeah, definitely. I guess, being that I'm air guard, so I'm going to speak a little bit to that first. So, and an engineer. So we already touched on this a little bit, but it has turned out to be so much paperwork and so much lobbying that I had to do to kind of keep this project alive. So I am proud of it from that perspective, and I'm proud of the work that the Maine Air Guard engineers have done. So they're in Bangor, but they still, remotely designed this project, got on all their different geo mapping things, got on AutoCAD, designed it up, presented it to Montenegro, again, all virtually, because this was going on during the winter of 2021. So this past winter, but things were still completely locked down. So I'm just really proud of the work that they did. We ended up being able to get them to come out and actually meet their Montenegrin engineer counterparts, see the site. See, obviously the design has changed a little, we've changed some things, but they did a pretty amazing job for working virtually. It's cool. Yeah, that your military can do it, put us in a crazy, situation, and we'll be able to get some good work done. But it was so awesome to see. So really proud of them and the work we put into that. And I'm, again, fingers crossed, hopefully April of 22, we'll actually do the project.
That's cool.
Communications and cyber is really a huge, huge effort. And I can't take any credit for this. I just, as we say, facilitate, but I keep the relationships going, right? So I kind of organize the expertise and the experts. I get them together, and they do great work. It's awesome. But we've had a long-standing, really, really strong relationship between cyber experts in Maine and in Montenegro, and it's you can tell they're just such good friends, and those are the lines of activity that we have that are the strongest. When people, as I said, take the time to talk to each other about their family, and just share personal experiences. It's really fun to watch them work, because when they get down to work, they work so much more efficiently because they're already on the same wavelength, even though we're from completely different cultures and countries. So the cyber is great, and Chief Moncrief over on the Army Guard has really been spearheading that for a long time. And he helped facilitate introductions on the Air Guard side, because we're starting more of an IT, I guess you could call it, but communications focus as well, because we've done so well with cyber, and in the military, we kind of lump them all. They're from the same kind of office or a larger department. So in Montenegro, we're kind of switching focus, maintaining cyber, but moving forward in general communications, radios, deployable radios. So anything from sat phones to my IT is completely failing me. All of those communications assets. It's really awesome. So I'm really proud of their work. We're linking in with some bigger part of what my office does. So not me, but the U.S. Office of Defense Cooperation is what I work in. And part of that is controlling any military purchases that are done between Montenegro and the U.S. So Montenegro just purchased 67 JLTVs, which are basically up-armored personnel movers, right?
Wow.
So just moving people from point A to point B, huge up-armored, very impressive. U.S. units are just getting JLTVs now. So Montenegro actually beat most of the United States military. Yeah, it's like the new cool vehicle to have if you're in the military.
Is it similar
so
to
that's
like
really awesome.
I'm sorry. Is it similar?
Yeah, like an MRAP,
Yeah,
MTV,
exactly. Okay.
all of those things.
That's
exactly.
cool.
Yep, same flavor. Like a bigger Humvee for anyone out there still like, what are we talking about? So that's been fun. So SPP, Mainers are involved with helping them on the communications for that. Obviously, that's huge. You can't do anything with them if you can't use the radio. But also we're going to be helping with not actually doing maintenance. So anytime I'm saying helping, it's usually just expert exchanges. So, here's what we do in Maine or the United States that works really well in this area. How are you doing it in Montenegro? And so we'll say, oh, well, this is how we do it, but I kind of like pieces of what you guys do, and we kind of just exchange expertise is really what happens. Sometimes we work on policies together, forming them, refining them, and sometimes it's more just skill based. Two guys under a JLTV together saying, nah, I wouldn't do that. Instead, I would fix it this way. Or, when I drive the JLTV, it performs better when I do X, Y, and Z. So not training per se, but expertise sharing, which is really fun.
Wow. Yeah, it is after all, it's a state partnership, right? That word partnership, I guess that makes sense.
Right.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So like, for example, New Jersey partners with Albania. So Michigan partners with Croatia. So we all kind of stay, and I think it's Vermont is with Kosovo. This is now we're testing my knowledge here, but so it's fun. Every state has their own country, and so here regionally we try and stay in communication with what the other states are doing in the other countries in this region. Other countries are getting JLTVs, so we're hoping to do some regional initiatives. That will be really awesome. But yeah, so anyways, those are just kind of a taste of some of the interesting things we're doing here as Mainers in Montenegro.
I didn't even know about the state partnership program until I came up here and worked for public affairs. Like I literally had no idea. So it's one of those cool things that, maybe, as new recruits, maybe recruiters could be, talking about that, and they may be doing
Oh,
that
definitely.
because
Definitely.
yeah, people like you and your experiences and what you've been able to endure and kind of.
Yeah, and as you said, your brothers even come over. I mean, so it's
Mhm.
not. I mean, my position, super cool. I mean, right, crazy, difficult, super cool. But even just experts within their field in Maine, we probably have on a normal year, so not non-COVID year, and I'm hoping at some point post-COVID year, like a good 15 events a year. So, and I mean that's usually 4 to 5 Mainers involved in each of those events. And some of it's good, and it's funny. So speaking of some of the Maine guardsmen out there, sometimes I think people are like, oh, why do the same people get to do the events over and over again? Share the love. And I definitely ascribe to that to a certain extent. On the other hand, if you flip the script and look at it from a Montenegrin perspective, if they have to deal with a completely new set, again, experts, definitely we only send, people who are experts in their field. And we have a lot of them. Like just looking at comms, we have a ton of communication experts in Maine, which is really awesome. And it says great things about our program. But if Montenegro has to re-explain their strengths and weaknesses and re-explain, where they're coming from culturally, from a budget perspective, from a personnel perspective, at every single event, it really it makes the event not worthwhile, really, at the end of the day. And it's funny. That's kind of the difficulty I have with Special Operations Command Europe, right? We hear Special Operations and we think, wow, that's awesome. You have Special Forces guys coming in, and yeah, it is really cool, and they are experts in their field. But I have to give them, I have to spend hours with them virtually to prep for engagements, because they come in for they don't actually come to Montenegro for 6 months, but they come to Europe for 6 months and then they're gone again. So I only get a couple of engagements with these people. So anyway, so it's really helpful with Mainers. They educated me on Montenegro. They told me, here are their strengths and weaknesses before I even went to Montenegro. And that way, so that's the flip side of the coin. I guess that was kind of a long explanation. So we tell them, we want 2 points of contact, primary and an alternate in this line of activity, whether it's communications or cyber or engineers. But then, switch out to other people, because we do want to share the love. We want to spread the word about how awesome Montenegro is, how awesome Maine is, how great of a partnership we have. But we do need continuity at the same time. So anyways.
Right. And that's, so again, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with well, you just said it yourself, like sharing the love type of thing. But the fact of the matter is that everybody has an opportunity to do something similar. And I think that's kind of one of those hidden messages, right? Is that,
right.
You're a perfect example of again, stepping outside your comfort zone and then jumping into something that you weren't all that experienced with. And that's kind of, everybody has been there. Like there isn't one leader out there in the world that wasn't uncomfortable at some point, in their career field or in their career path, I guess. But that's
and then oh, sorry.
Oh, no,
and I was just going to say, another common question I get is kind of, I think, again, from the U.S. perspective, sometimes we get to, so, okay, so I see how we're helping Montenegro, but how are we helping Maine? And I understand that question. At the same time, I think it's kind of coming from the wrong angle, right? Because really, at the end of the day, we are doing expert exchanges. So number one, to be an expert and to go explain and talk to somebody else about your standard practices, how you handle and lead, and your skill sets, and that's right. I think we sometimes talk about that helps you learn your own craft by having to teach it, right? That's often what we do for mid-level NCOs or mid-level officers, and make them teach a class, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's the same level of thing. It's great for you to be an expert, but if you can't explain it or pass along any of those skills to anybody else, then that's not helpful. That's not useful. But I think it helps us as experts and professionals. But also, I mean, there is not one person who comes to Montenegro who doesn't learn something. And I think it's actually also sometimes a good reminder for us, because sometimes they're doing a lot of things the way that we would consider old school. And, sometimes we'll roll our eyes at it. But I mean, a lot of our senior NCOs will remind us, like, well, we're way too reliant upon this computer or whatever computer system we're using to track personnel or to track logistics or X, Y, and Z. And we don't know how to actually do it out in a deployed environment, out in the field, out training. And so often that's kind of what Montenegro can help remind us, Plus, it also just helps us put us in a different mindset, which I think is helpful for deployments in general, right? To deploy and to work in a different environment, you need to be more open-minded. You need to think outside the box. You can't get used to your same office, your same computer, your same, everything. Sometimes we just get too comfortable. And as leaders, we shouldn't be set in our ways and comfortable. So that kind of helps. That it helps broaden us, I think.
One of the upsides of being, in an active duty environment is that you're kind of forced to PCS and to travel a little bit more than if you spend 20 years in Bangor, Maine, and then all of a sudden you're on year 19 and you get tasked with your first deployment, and then you're not, and then all the active duty young troops are looking to you for guidance because you're the senior guy or gal, and then you're like, well, this is my first deployment, so stepping outside that comfort zone and doing that uncomfortable thing to for that, like you said earlier, for career progression is
You're right.
huge.
I think it's really helpful for the Guard. Yeah. But to speak up for the Guard at the same time, though, I think it's so much easier for Montenegrins to work with National Guard members than it is for active duty members, especially, and I was active duty Army, so I can hate on them a little. They come in and they have a much huger perspective. I mean, just huge perspective, because the active duty Army in the U.S. is humongous. So they come in and, it's just like a completely different mindset. So sometimes I think they just, and sometimes the op tempo, like their intensity is just not way too high. It's just much higher than Montenegrins. Not that Montenegrins aren't passionate. They are hugely passionate people, but it's almost two completely different cultures, I think, is what I'm trying to say from a professional perspective. So while I can tell Montenegrins really like having active duty Army come, and it's really great to work with them because they know they're going to deploy, and they have. Montenegro sent probably almost a third of their force to Afghanistan to deploy. So they've had a lot of interactions, with active duty Army. But when it comes to bringing expertise and trying to apply it to what they're doing in Montenegro, it's completely different. So that's where the Guard shines. I mean, truly. At first, I've kind of, not that I was skeptical, I just had no basis. But now that I've seen it in person, and in-person engagements between the two, it always kind of makes me chuckle. And then the National Guard comes in and is like, nah, I wouldn't do it like active duty. This is how we do it. And Montenegro's are just like, yeah, that makes more sense. So it's really cool. It's cool how, again, it's given me an appreciation for total force military.
Well, if anybody knows, that firsthand, it's you.
Interesting.
The gentleman that we had on the last podcast that we did, he's a 19, almost 20 year security forces master sergeant. And he's kind of leading the program on innovation on down there with a.
Awesome. We've been doing some good stuff in that in Maine.
Oh, it's wild. Yeah. And they, just not to get too sidetracked with it, but his his program is like a virtual reality, firearms simulator type thing where, it's insane. When you come back, you'll have to get a hold of those guys and try it out. Cause I was kind of skeptical, and I was
like, I'm going to have to listen to this podcast.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know. Like, it seems kind of weird. It seems like it's a video game or something. And then I went down and tried it, and I was like, okay, I can see how this is beneficial, because they kind of remapped. They have the ability to remap buildings, like so say,
so cool.
486 is that CE, right? If they remapped CE virtually and then kind of implanted an active shooter, and then how would you respond to go neutralize a threat. And it's really kind of crazy. But anyway, one of the things that we talked about was the beauty of the Air National Guard, or the Guard in general, is that, say, for in security forces, their case or whatever, but you have, all these traditionals, you have 100 cops down there, and say 70% of them are civilian law enforcement, and whether you're a sheriff's deputy or a state, trooper, or you're a local, Bangor PD, or you're a federal agent, or you're whatever, everybody has a different way that they're taught on how to, say, like, handcuff somebody. Everybody has a different way. And then you have the Air Force way, and then you have the Army way, and then you have the Marine Corps way. So you get everybody in this room kind of talking about how to properly handcuff somebody. And none of them's wrong, but they're all different.
Right.
So that's and in my mind, like, that is one of the beauties of the Guard, is that you have all this, and you know what? And I'm preaching to the choir, because in CE, like, you guys bring this crazy amount of experience, engineering experience, builders, carpenters, electricians, and they learn from their civilian entities, then they learn the Air Force way, and then they kind of combine that knowledge, and it makes it a stronger fighting force versus, like, say, active duty, where it's just the Air Force way and that's it. And so being able to bring that expertise, in my mind, I guess, thinking about it this way, being able to bring that those skills and those professions, like, say, to Montenegro, and partner up with their folks, and then learn and teaching it. I feel like it's a better way to learn. To your point,
No, I definitely agree. And again, we're trying to think. Again, it's in some of the trial phases, but I'm trying to sync some active duty experts with SPP experts with Montenegrins all in one engagement. And we've been able to do that in a couple of different, we call it lines of activity, but, kind of a focus, whereas a cyber would be a focus line of activity. And that's just been also really awesome. I mean, just adding in a third perspective, as you said. Then, active duty is learning from Guard's learning from Montenegro's learning from everyone. It's just awesome. And of course I'm learning. I'm over there in the corner, like, taking notes half the time. We've been doing a lot of public diplomacy or public outreach engagements quarterly.
Wow.
Really trying to help Montenegro with their strategic communication campaign. But public outreach type stuff.
Wow.
And
you really are doing public affairs stuff, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. Well, we'll have to talk later. We have some good plans, but yeah, I mean, I'm just learning so much. So it's been really, really fun. Last shout out is that this December 7th is the 15-year anniversary for SPP relationship between Maine and Montenegro. So we're really, really excited. We're hoping to do something, a virtual kind of celebration on the actual day, and then about 2 months later, hopefully either get the tag to Montenegro or the Chief of Defense of Montenegro over to Maine and do an in-person, really, really celebrate and do some key leader engagements to celebrate the 15 years. So it's an honor to be here on that, and it's kind of helpful to have something to celebrate after COVID. I think we've all kind of dragged on, and it was a good year and a half of no in-person engagements between Maine and Montenegro. Actually, I think it was only a year and 2 months, I think. But still, that was a really hard time to come in as a BAO. Halfway through that, just okay, I represent Maine, but Maine hasn't been here for 6 months. We haven't seen each other. So, where some lines of activity kind of not died off, but it was just kind of a good time to relook at the whole program and say, okay, what's working really well? Let's continue that. What do we not need anymore? And what can we mature and progress forward? So we're hoping to kind of take a little time to celebrate that, make some plans for the future, and really hoping actually to do a public affairs campaign, do some social media posts, just get the word out, both in Maine and in Montenegro, of how awesome, right? I think even the U.S., we forget what NATO is, right? But some of our NATO alliances, so across the Atlantic Ocean, our military alliances, and that's what really brings us together. So hoping to do kind of a campaign over the winter when things are a little quieter, both in Maine and Montenegro, just to remind everyone what awesome experiences and friendships people have developed over the years. So hoping to spotlight some of the people who have been involved in the program for a really long time.
Yeah, let us know what we can do to help with that, because that sounds like that sounds interesting. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
And again, I think I said this before we hit record, but I'm just kind of winging this. I don't actually have questions in front of me, in case you're wondering. But I'm just kind of going, just a normal conversation. And that's the thing, right? Is that when we first started doing this, it was like, here's like 5 questions, and I'd email it to you, and we'd rehearse it, and it just sounded so robotic, So my last question is, do you have any advice or maybe some insight on maybe people who may feel stagnant, that may feel like they're not? When I say people, I mean people here at the wing. If they feel like they're not being challenged enough, as far as like maybe stepping outside their comfort zone and go trying something new, kind of like what you did, trying something different and stepping outside your comfort zone. What advice would you give to someone like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I kind of went through a phase like that, after your first couple of years of entering the military, and you're all jazzed up at the beginning. You went to your training for your specialty, and oh yeah, this is going to be, and it is awesome. But after a couple of years of doing it, and you're just, oh okay, it's just, I see you see the positives and the negatives, and it's all kind of the same. And especially in the National Guard, it can get very the same. But I do know that a number of people kind of, okay, how do I shake this up a little bit? I know for me, I think what was big for me, I finally realized I needed to reach out and find my own mentor. So that's what back in CE, actually, so 2 things. So number 1, find your own mentor. And then number 2, map out your career. So, and I know this sounds crazy, but I would work with my enlisted who worked underneath me back at the wing in Civil Engineer Squadron. I encouraged them to do both of those. So I gave them, it's kind of like a 1 slide. It sounds super nerdy, but 1 slide. All right, so here's map what your normal progression would be, because sometimes you often forget. When do I need to do what professional steps by in order that I get promoted, or in order for me to get considered for first sergeant, or in order for me to get all of those things, right? You just kind of forget, and you find yourself doing the sameness over and over again if you're not looking at the big fit, like, where do I want to go? So I'd have the map, what would kind of normal look like a good normal career in your specialty or AFSC. And then right below it, do something crazy, like just a little different. So let's say, anyways, and that's different for everybody, right? What they consider crazy or not. Let's say, like, throw in a broadening assignment, throw in an AFSC change. Was there something that's so after 10 years, I'm going to switch over to X, Y, and Z. I think that's helpful to see. You need to map it out. You need to be honest with yourself about the options. Okay, so I make a certain rank. Is there any room for me here at the squadron? Am I going to have to change AFSC? And don't be, that way you're not necessarily surprised by it. You see it coming, and you can do your own research. But then, sometimes you don't know where to go. Get yourself a mentor. I remember as a lieutenant, I didn't feel confident enough to bother someone higher ranking than me to be my mentor. But by the time I hit captain, I was like, nope, no one's going to care about your career other than you. Mm-hmm. And there are plenty of people who want to help you. They just don't realize that you need their help, or, we're all kind of caught in the same sameness every day, the busy. If you tap someone on the shoulder and say, hey, I would love to meet with you once a quarter over lunch and just talk about career stuff. I know almost no one who would say no to that. Of course, that's awesome. So get yourself a mentor, think outside the box, think some of those crazy thoughts with somebody and get their take on it. And honestly, that was huge for getting me to this position. I kind of started just, oh yeah, position could be interesting because I have this background and I did this in college in Honduras and this in college in Slovakia. And, my mentor was like, Carolyn, you would be perfect for this position. And it kind of takes it from that part where you're like, I don't really, you're not necessarily confident in yourself to, oh, you're right. No, this could be really good fit.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's what I'd say.
That's awesome. No, that's great advice, and I think that especially coming from somebody who is in the position that you're in now, and also given your background, and it goes without saying too that I think once you do come back, as long as they don't recruit you over there for a full 20-year career, they once you do come back, it's just going to be one more thing that you can add to your experiences. And I think that it's a great, it really is, it's got to be an awesome experience for you, and
Yeah,
then
definitely.
for whoever comes after you, that's huge.
Yeah, I've been taking notes. Yeah, I'm really excited for, recruiting my replacement, even though, I'm not even halfway through yet, but very excited. I think they'll advertise for my position sometime early spring of 22, so February, March timeframe. Yeah, so I'm hoping on coming back to Maine around that timeframe as well, do a couple of info sessions. And it's not even just me. I mean, there are a number of people still in the Guard who held my position before. So get all of us together, do some info sessions, because that's the best way to learn, get the message out.
Big podcast.
But yeah, and then I also, yeah, the podcast definitely. And then in person, I want to reach out to leaders. I know we have a number of leaders who are kind of, why are my airmen and soldiers getting distracted from the main mission to do SPP? What is this? So definitely, I just want to be an open book. Ask me all the questions. Ask me all your concerns. It's a great program, and I'm proud of it. But the last thing I do have to say is I really miss a good pumpkin spice latte. So I just want to tell all you Mainers to really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I tried ordering myself some pumpkin coffee online and got it shipped to me, and took multiple weeks, and it's just not the same.
No,
I just have to tell you all.
they don't.
So,
they probably, we open this talking about coffee and caffeine, and we'll close it talking about coffee and caffeine. But they don't.
we have to. That's what runs the world.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. As I'm sitting here talking to you, and I just finished an extra large cold brew black.
Yeah. I need you to appreciate your coffee while it's in your hand.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure they probably don't do like flavored coffee and stuff over there, do they?
No. I mean, so it is, I do have to say, I've never appreciated like the whole espresso thing before, espresso machine, but cappuccinos, never liked them before. They do them really well here, but that's all they do. That is it.
I know a few years ago, actually, I was with CE, and we were heading overseas somewhere, and anyway, we stopped in Crete, and we were in which I guess is Greece, and so we were in some local cafe, and I'd ordered a coffee, and it was like in a 4-ounce coffee cup, and I was like, what is this? But it was very pretty, and it was frothy, and it looked great, and I was like, wow, this is nice, but this isn't gonna do it. And then but it's just that's what they Americans drink a gallon of coffee in one sitting, and these guys drink 4 ounces. It's just but no,
it is. It's completely different, and there's some things that we've definitely transitioned over to really well. And we're like, oh yeah, this is great. I don't miss it. And there are other things where it's just like, no, especially during fall. I miss Maine fall. I have to say.
It is. It's nice out right now.
Well.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's like 40. It was 40 when I came in, and it's like it'll be to like mid 60s today. The leaves are all turned. It looks awesome, but. Not to rub in your face or anything, but that's cool.
That's okay.
You're like, I'll remember that. Yeah, writing this down. Well, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate what you're doing. I'll chat with you for a quick second after I stop hitting record. But yeah, is there anything you'd like to add, ma'am?
No, that's it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to highlight SPP and all the good work Mainers are doing here.
Yeah, anytime. We'll have to, and if we'll do this again, I'm sure maybe we'll figure something else out. Maybe we'll talk about I don't know. I'm just kind of speaking out loud here, but maybe the CE's newest EOD unit.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That's pretty crazy.
I would definitely say next time around we should interview some of the people who have been doing this for a while, and they can just share what they've done in Montenegro. It's Mainers have done great things. There's a lot to share.
That would be cool. Is getting even some of your coworkers, your Montenegrin coworkers. That would be awesome to get them, like maybe like a three-way conversation or something.
It's funny because some of them probably know more Mainers than I do. Mariana asks me all the time, "Oh, don't you know, so and so?"
Oh, really? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's been in the Maine Army Guard for years. It's like, oh boy, you know more Mainers than I do. How's this possible?
Knows their family, knows where they're from. Yeah, all that
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
exactly. No,
That's
seriously.
cool. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. I look forward to talking again.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks again to Major Carolyn Richley for taking the time out of her busy schedule to do this interview. I think it goes without saying that once she returns to Maine, the plethora, man, that's a weird word, the vast amount of knowledge she'll bring to the table is going to be pretty cool to see. And I almost forgot to mention that she's the first female and airman to take this position for the Maine Air National Guard. For the Maine National Guard, really. I think it's typically been a male soldier who's been in that role. So she's making history. It's pretty cool. But the message is here is that if you want it, you have the capability of making history as well. Remember the key messages from this interview. Don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone, for one. And when you do, be sure you have access to some stellar to-go coffee. Drill weekend is here. Be sure to make the most of it. Train, retrain, train some more, right? Don't forget we have a Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Divots. We have it all. Just Google it. We're there. 101STARW, that's our hashtag. Again, that's hashtag 101STARW. The recruiters have their own social media pages as well. Just Google Maine Air National Guard Recruiting, and you'll see their social media pages show up. You can send them messages. Be sure to drop them some likes, and follow their pages and share those as well. Get the word out. Help spread the word. Hunting season is here. I don't want to forget to mention that if you are out in the woods and you are hunting, please be safe at all times. Wear your orange, your blaze orange. And you would think for somebody who works in Photoshop on almost a daily basis, I could tell you exactly what shade or color code that orange is, but I don't know. So you can either Google it or get with the safety office and they'll let you know. They'll tell you. Maybe I'll put a reference note in the description of this podcast. Maybe not. We'll see. That's it. That's all I have. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. So long for now.